Hello and welcome to the Spinning Earth Unit Internalization video. My name is Sean Tamarisk of KIPP, Massachusetts. The big question for this unit is, why doesn't the sky always look the same?
And the anchor phenomenon for this unit is focused on how the sky can look different to different people at the same exact time because they're on different parts of the Earth.
In lesson one, we present a situation here. A little boy named Sai likes to video chat with his grandmother after school. And when he calls her, this is what the sky looks like at his house. But at her house, at the same time, the sky is dark. So it's afternoon at Sai's house, and at his grandmother's house, it's at nighttime. So we present this paradox, and kids work through the unit, try to develop an explanation for why it is that it's night in one place and daytime in another at the same time.
And in order to answer this question, students learn about patterns.
Observing patterns of how the sun, moon, and stars move across the sky and using that to learn more about Earth's place in the solar system and why we have night and day. Students will use their senses and careful observations to learn important things about their place in the universe. Astronomers have used observations of the sky for thousands of years to stunning effect.
Eratosthenes, for example, was a Greek astronomer who 2,000 years ago used the shadows at noon on different parts of the Earth to calculate the diameter of the Earth accurately to within just a few hundred miles.
And in modern times, we have used our observations of the universe to get us to the moon. However, it's important that our students don't just passively accept this information, but rather learn how to collect it on their own, make observations to collect their own evidence, and draw their own conclusions in this era of fake news. We must make sure our kids can make fact-based arguments. Even now, there are conspiracy theorists who believe that the Earth is actually flat, and that it's a conspiracy put on by NASA and the government to make the Earth appear round. They'll use pseudo-scientific arguments that seem like they have reasonable evidence to make their point, but in fact, any first grader who's gone through this unit will hopefully be able to blow up these arguments with the evidence and logic that they gained from this unit and from the previous unit about light. Yes, our goal is for our first graders to be able to duel with adults and beat them with facts. Before we begin, please make sure you did your pre-work shown here. All right, starting with big question number one to start off the unit in lesson one. The question is, what can we see in the sky at different times? And in this lesson, students read the book, The Sun is My Favorite Star. This book is not included with Amplify, but I decided to include it as part of the curriculum because it shows really nicely how the sun moves across the sky in different times of day.
For the next lesson, you take students outside to make observations of the sky, paying particular attention to where the sun is located. Right now it's 2:45 and it's just going behind the car wash here. So it's really important you find a spot that has a view, if you're in the northern hemisphere, that has a view of the southern sky. So in the morning, the sun might be over here by this building. It gets higher in the middle of the day, and kids should know it gets lower again in the afternoon. You need to be, as much as possible, find a spot where you can see the full trajectory of the sun throughout the day. If you can take students out during recess or another part of the day so they can see different times of the sun at different times of the day, that's ideal. If you're unable to do that, you can do something like take pictures, go outside and take pictures of the sun at different times of the day and have students draw their observations of the pictures into their notebooks. So as part of studying patterns in the sky, the next lesson you take students outside to make observations of the sky, in particular paying attention to where the sun's position is in the sky. Right now it's about 2:45 in the winter time and the sun is just setting behind the car wash over here. It's important you find, if you're in the northern hemisphere, that you find a place you can view the whole southern horizon, the whole southern part of the sky. So for example, you might be able to find a spot where in the morning the sun is right by this building here, coming up from behind the building. In the middle of the day, maybe it's over here, high in the sky, and by the afternoon it's gone back down again over here. So we got a nice little sweep of sky over here where we can track the sun's progress. I highly recommend bringing kids out at different times of the day, or photographing the sky on your own with the sun in it in case it's rainy, snowy, and or you're not able to get kids outside at different times of the day like recess to make observations.
Because the weather is bad, I actually took photos of the sky at different times at our other school. Here it is in the morning. around the middle of the day, early afternoon, and then late afternoon. And I had students actually draw observations in their notebooks based upon the pictures, and eventually figure out that the sun actually moves in an arc across the sky. You'll note that in the investigation notebook, I've got a photo of the buildings from the vantage point of where we made the observations. I recommend you do a similar thing for your own school so that students don't have to draw in the buildings themselves, that everyone has a common reference point and will draw the sun in a similar position in their own notebooks. It's a little extra work, but it creates much more accurate drawings.
You can also create a sundial out of paper to use as you make observations with your class. You line it up to north and then record the center of the shadow for each time of day. In this case, this was 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Putting together all your observations throughout the day, you have a record of how the sun travels across the sky.
Students then read the book after sunset and learn more about the sky in the nighttime and what can be seen in the transition between night and day. Students read the book Patterns of Earth and Space, which introduces students to the idea of patterns over time, such as changes in the seasons and changes in time of day. In this lesson, students discuss 3 different models of how the sun might travel across the sky, and their goal is to argue for which model they think is correct based upon the observations that they made earlier. Next, students look at webcams in different areas of the world to collect evidence for the fact that it's daytime in some places at the same time that it's nighttime in other places. For example, here's a live shot of Boston in the morning, and at the same time, here's a live shot of a main street in Tokyo, Japan, which you can clearly see is at night.
At this point in the unit, students should understand Progress Build 1. The sun is visible in the daytime, stars are visible in the nighttime, and the moon is visible in both daytime and the nighttime. The sun, moon, and stars all appear to move across the sky in an arc. The sun is higher in the middle of the day and lower, closer to the horizon, at the beginning and end of the day, morning and afternoon. It is daytime in some places on Earth at the same time that it's nighttime in other places. And here's the Progress Build 1 focus task. Go ahead and read it over and then take a few minutes to complete it. Then check back here for answers. Pausing now. Great. Here's the completed Progress Build 1 focus task. Maya and Rico live in different places, and here's an explanation for how a student might explain how they know. At this point, students should be able to explain that because Maya sees a bright sky and Rico sees a dark nighttime sky, they must live in different places. Note that not all students in your class might not yet have the skills to fully express themselves in writing. So as an accommodation, you can definitely have certain kids explain to you verbally what they mean in addition to writing.
On to big question number 2, the why behind the first progress build. So why is it actually daytime in some places when it's nighttime in other places? So we return to Sai, right? We've been able to describe and explain that the fact that his grandmother must live in a different part of Earth or a different part of the world, and that's why it's nighttime in her house and daytime in his. But Sai wants to know why that is. Why is it that if you're on a different part of the Earth, it's a different time? Students begin to answer this question by observing how the stars move across the sky. You can either download an app for the tablets if you have access to tablets, or go to a website that allows you to change the time and watch the stars move across the sky. Students use their observations in the next lesson to try and figure out why you can see stars in nighttime but not in daytime. Do the stars get turned off with like a light switch? Is the sun so bright that it blocks out the stars in the daytime? Do the stars actually set in the morning and rise at night? Students use a model of a flashlight with holes poked in aluminum foil to create stars and try out different ideas. And they make observations from videos to collect evidence and make an argument for which model they think is correct. Next, students use physical models of globes and maps to try and figure out exactly why it's daytime in one place and nighttime in another. In the next lesson, you can either have them use tablets again or an online website such as Google Earth to actually observe a model of the Earth as it spins and identify where night and day is at different times. Finally, students read the book What Spins to better understand how spinning changes your perspective, and they relate it to the spinning of the Earth.
At this point of the unit, students should be able to explain Progress Build 2. Earth is round like a ball and it spins slowly in space. When your part of Earth faces the sun, you see the sun and it's daytime. And as it continues to spin, the sun appears to set, and then your part of the Earth first faces away from the sun, and you can see stars and it's nighttime. Of the Progress Build. Take a couple minutes to read it over and complete it, then check back here. Pausing now.
Great, so hopefully you identified that Sai's grandmother traveled through a black hole and now lives in a parallel universe where it's a different time of day. Just kidding.
Here's an exemplar response from a student. This drawing has clearly labeled the sun and the earth. It shows the shadow on the earth side and the light on the side facing the sun. And it's clearly pointing where Sai lives right here on this side facing the sun and where Sai's grandma lives on this side facing away from the sun. It's also pointed out where daytime is and nighttime.
At the end of this chapter, there's an optional lesson exploring the moon and relating it back to what students learned in the previous unit about light and sound. The question is the moon a light source? And what shape is it? And students use a tablet or a website to explore the shape of the moon, how light travels across the surface of the moon. They use a model of the moon with a flashlight to try and figure this question out. And then they go ahead and diagram it in the following lesson, Modeling Moonlight, diagram how they think the light travels from the sun, reflects off the moon, and reaches Earth.
On to big question number 3. How is the sky different in the summer and winter?
Now that we've answered Sai's first 2 questions, Sai is wondering why sometimes when he calls his grandmother right after school, the sun is still out, but other times when he calls her right after school, for example in the wintertime, it's nighttime. So the sun actually seems to set at different times. Students read the book A Walk Through the Seasons in order to collect evidence about this question. In the following lesson, they analyzed graphs of both time that the sun is out during the day and average temperatures throughout the year to better understand how the seasons change. They look at models of how the sun moves across the sky in the wintertime versus the summertime as well.
At this point in the unit, students should be able to explain Progress Build 3. In the wintertime, the sun is up for fewer hours during the day, and in the summertime, it's up for more hours. This causes seasons in some areas of the world, such as leaves turning colors and falling, winters with snow, and hot summers. And here's the Progress Build 3 focus task to assess student understanding. Go ahead and take a few minutes to read it over and complete it, then check back here for an exemplar response. Pause now. Great, here's the exemplar. Note that the seasons are circled, and here's an explanation for why. Go ahead and pause now and compare it to your own response. All right, on to the end of unit assessment.
In order to assess Progress Build 1 understanding, we have question 1 here. Please go ahead and complete it and then check back for the exemplar response. And here's the exemplar. All students need to do is draw the sun again further along in an arc shape right along the horizon at the end of the day. Here's a question that assesses Progress Build 2 on the end of the unit assessment. Go ahead and complete the task and check back here. In this case, students can either write or draw or both to show their understanding. Here's an exemplar drawing that shows the sun's light hitting the earth on one side while the other side of the earth is in shadow. Light and dark are clearly labeled, as well as the spin of the earth is shown with an arrow. And here's a student explanation. Go ahead and read it over and compare it to your own. Finally, here's a question on the end of the unit assessment that assesses Progress Build 3. Go ahead and complete the question and check back here. Great, here's the correct answers. Again, it's about students being able to understand the patterns of the seasons and different changes that happen in different times of the year. Once again, it's not why the seasons happen, but rather how they change over time.
Thank you very much for taking the time to complete this unit internalization video to be as prepared as possible for your students. KIPP teachers specifically, and I recommend this for anyone, go ahead and complete these additional steps to get fully prepared to teach this, and thank you once again.